It is NBA draft night, and the Golden State Warriors are officially on the clock. This is a live show as we break down the Dubs' 52nd and 59th pick. They made a trade with the Phoenix Suns, sending 41 to the desert. In return, they get 2 picks, both of them reacted to live on the air. Let's roll.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
What are they going to say now?
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, what is the good word, everyone? Welcome to Locked On Warriors. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Best way you can check out this show, pretty much anywhere. Google it. Check us out on YouTube, audio podcast. We're always free, never behind a paywall. Charlie Walter here, formerly of 95.7 The Game. That's the flagship radio station for the Golden State Warriors. Also covered the team for CBS News Bay Area. Kylen Mills, my co-host today. She covered the Dubs for Cron 4 for NBC Sports Bay Area. She's with the Big Ten networks now. So if the Warriors take a Big Ten player, you literally have the best analyst in the world to break this thing down, and that is not hyperbole. Maybe John Beeline would be better, but that's about it, Kylen. 2 minutes left until the Warriors are officially on the clock for their 52nd pick. They traded away 41 to the Phoenix Suns. In return, they got 2 picks. Obviously, some cheap talent to bring in. Helps with the apron. Maybe, just maybe, it's a part of a bigger trade. As of right now, we've heard nothing. Unfortunately, the guy that I wanted, Maxime Reynaud from Stanford, would have been available at 41 as the Sacramento Kings took him at 42. The pick that went 41 was Kobe Brea, a 6'7" sharpshooter from Kentucky. So he goes to Phoenix, and instead the Warriors will get some cheap bodies to help with apron issues at 52 and 59. My logic, I think the Warriors wanted Young Hansen from China at 41. He ends up going 16 to the Memphis Grizzlies, way ahead of schedule, and Mike Dunleavy decided to pivot. But there are a lot of good players left on the board, Kylen. We're monitoring this thing live. How are we?
Chuck, I want to know why. Why did the Warriors trade their 41st pick for 2 second-rounders? Listen, this front office better be cooking up something because the Warriors don't need any more young players riding the bench. I know some folks have been saying, well, listen, they just need some cheap players to fill out the rest of the roster. But in my opinion, they've got enough young, cheap players on the roster. Bring in some vets on vet minimums. And I still would like to see some trades, some pieces moving to bring in a starting center, to bring in a third scorer. I know we talked about Jimmy Butler coming in now being a reliable secondary scorer with Steph Curry. I'm excited to see what those two can do with a full season under their belts. But I'm very, very intrigued by the Warriors trading the 41st pick to get 2 picks, the 52nd and 59th. It is a curious decision to me. I don't think we necessarily need more young players riding the bench. So I'm hoping the front office is going to link those two to some type of move, to a Jonathan Kuminga trade, as we've been talking about. So while, yeah, I'm going to be watching the picks, I'm more so going to be watching what happens with the picks, and I'm hoping they'll be on the move.
So the pick is in for the Clippers. Let's give it to you live. It is someone I've never heard of from France. So no issues there in terms of breaking down who the Warriors could take. So, all right, here we go. 52nd pick. Warriors are on the clock. Help me out in the chat. If Shams or anyone breaks this on social media, Kylen's got her eyes on the phone right now.
That's what I'm doing right now, literally.
Yep. I respect that. So here's what we are looking at right now in terms of the Warriors. Players that they've worked out that are still on the table. We got R.J. Lewis from St. John's, who's known for athleticism, a defensive approach, a Rick Pitino guy through and through. John Tonje from Wisconsin. He's someone that can light it up and can really shoot. Tamar Bates from Missouri is a player that the Warriors have worked out, and he is just a sharpshooter. 220 of 238 free throws he hit in college. That's good for 94%. The guy can shoot. Unfortunately, he only averaged like 13 points a game at Missouri. Was a little bit unselfish, but because of his shooting ability, maybe he comes to the league and just pops as a scorer. Eric Dixon from Villanova, who averaged 23 and 5, is still on the table. Victor Locken from Clemson. Part of me is hoping it's Victor Locken because he is I'm a fan of his and he's a fan of ours. He's a Cincinnati guy, played for the Bearcats for 4 years before transferring to Clemson, and literally is a fan of my Bearcats podcast. So we could get him on the program this summer pretty easily if the Warriors were to draft him. I would talk about his game. We got Vlad Golden from Michigan, Grant Nelson from Alabama, Izan Almanza from Spain, who's like a high-energy Guy Santos guy, Ryan Nimhard from Gonzaga, who led the country in assists, and then Alex Toohey, who's a 6'8" small forward from Australia. So the pick is now in for the Golden State Warriors. Let's kind of monitor this thing live, Kylen, but you can take the floor for a little. Anyone that I just said, do you want to take with this pick?
There are a couple of guys that intrigued me. I actually was pleasantly surprised that, he was expected to be available around now, but I think RJ Lewis is a nice pick. I understand the frustration, though, about who the Warriors could have gotten with the 41st pick. Again, I just don't know that they need two young players who are not going to be contributors right now. I mean, the bottom line to me is just what is going on with this 2-timeline deal? What is the need to bring in not one second-round draft pick to bring in two? So I think I'm still just scratching my head and kind of watching who these picks are with some caution and some wonder as to what the ultimate plan is, because I think we can talk about a lot of what each of these guys would bring, and I think bringing in a floor spacer is great. Like, to me, Ryan Nemhard, like bringing in a rookie point guard, I'm just like, dude, we have pods, we have Steph Curry. I'd rather bring in another guy in a vet minimum to be that third option and to bring in another young player. So I don't know, but I wonder how long these players are going to be on the roster, and I'm really hoping that these two picks are on the move.
Breaking. The 52nd pick in the NBA draft, according to reports. Don't shoot the messenger. The Golden State Warriors are selecting Alex Toohey, a 6'8" small forward from Australia. If you don't know a lot about him, apparently he was really good at the NBA draft combine. He has strong measurements with solid shooting and drills. Just turned 21, made good use of his time in the NBL the last few seasons, shot at 31% from three, averaged 10 points per game. Seems like maybe more of a project, but again, a 6'8" small forward. The Warriors want some positional size. That is who they go with. Alex Toohey. We're doing the research live on air, and we will see if that is the official pick when they announce it. It looks like it is. So it's Alex Toohey, the Australian wing, who the Warriors will take. Again, 6'8" from Australia, played for the Sydney Kings, and looks like he shot at 44% from the floor, just a 72% free throw shooter. Again, 10 points, 4 rebounds, and assist. 31% from three, up from 24% a season ago. Looked like he took about 3 threes a game, so he can step out and hit them. Hopefully he's a developing shooter. But that's really what we have to his game right now, is I'm kind of watching the tapes and what he brings to the table, Kylen. Pick number 52, Alex Toohey to the Golden State Warriors. Thoughts in the comments?
Yeah, drop some comments as to what you think about this. I'm kind of just doing some research right now because the players out of Australia, I just don't know as well as all of the players in the collegiate game. My immediate thought, though, is like a couple of the Warriors' needs are, number one, what kind of defender is he? I don't know if you can pull some of the tape and kind of the research on that, Chuck, but I think that whoever we get, we need some more solid defenders. I think adding a wing wouldn't hurt this group. I think adding size doesn't hurt this group. So I don't know. I mean, what kind of defender is he? I think that's one of my main questions. And my other question is bringing in a guy, as I'm doing some more reading about him right now, who's a project. Again, the Warriors just don't need any more projects. Like, this is a team that is doing this whole thing where they're trying to maximize Steph Curry, but they keep bringing in projects. James Wiseman was a guy who was considered a high risk, high reward as a lottery pick. And how did that pan out? And they seem to keep making picks like that. And I don't know that we need another project. I don't know the Warriors can handle another project. Like, we need guys who are going to fill out the roster and be able to contribute now, and a guy who can help with depth now versus a guy who needs a ton of development. I still don't have a ton of faith in the Warriors being able to develop young players, to be frank. I don't think that it's been great the last couple of years. When you look at the draft picks the Warriors have picked in the last like 5-6 years, I mean, what has come of that? So I guess my question is why not pick a guy who is more of a finished and polished product versus someone who's going to be a project?
Yeah, and they had Maxime Reyno, and
I
granted,
know,
I didn't think
dude. I liked him. A guy with size and who can step out and stretch the floor and knock down some outside shots. How tall is Reyno again?
he's 7'1". And
Seven one.
what's interesting about Reyno is I don't know how it's going to translate to the league. It really depends
I
how
liked him at Stanford. I liked him a lot.
it depends how consistent of a clip he hits the 3-point shot, but he has a great pump fake. Like he'll just pump and go and slam it home, can handle the rock a little for someone his size. So his question is like, can he be a 36, 37% 3-point shooter at the next level? Because if he can, he's going to be a dog. Kings got him at 42. So good for Sacramento. In terms of our guy, Alex Toohey, strengths, a hardworking defender who stays locked in, makes positive plays all over the floor. Not necessarily quick laterally, but fights hard to stay in position of quicker players, has the strength to battle anyone. On offense, he's a big wing who's active on the board, loves to push the pace on the break. Not a great ball handler, but does have control in the open floor and does have good passing instincts. In a summary, he's kind of a jack of all trades Australian forward who grinds on defense, loves to pass the ball, sounds like a warrior, but his scoring kind of comes and goes because he has a streaky jumper, not someone that generates his own shot.
That's not what we want to hear.
The comparisons, George Niang and Solomon Hill are the two comparisons that I'm seeing. The concerns are his shooting. He's a low-volume 3-point shooter. The mid-range scoring sounds like he was good at the combine in terms of scoring or in terms of, shooting the basketball, but in terms of actual game play, he's just been But selfless passer, looks for his teammates, executes plays at a high level, has a great basketball IQ, and this is what it says. If his jumper develops, he could have even more value as a connective piece on the perimeter. This is because he has a skill as a slasher and a cutter. So if he added a jumper to his game, defenders would need to respect him more and open more drives. So yeah, it's basically, this is a guy that can do a lot of different things, but he can't shoot the basketball. But we hear that word connectivity. We hear the word passing. We hear IQ. We hear defense. Sounds like someone that the Warriors like. Again, is he going to be ready right away? I do not know. And now it's up to the Warriors to make a pick at 59 of someone that maybe is a little bit older and a little more ready. Let's continue this conversation. Pick 59 coming up live on air for the Golden State Warriors. This is Locked On Dubs, the draft edition. We return after this. All right, our sponsor today is WayFair. Now's the perfect time to check it out because there's nothing like stepping into your own outdoor space and feeling like you've escaped to your own personal oasis. If you're wanting to update your patio this season, WayFair has made it so easy to turn it into a space that feels like yours, comfortable, stylish, and ready for summer. Wayfair's got everything you need to level up your outdoor space. They got conversation sets, outdoor bars, fire pits, hot tubs, gazebos, and yes, even the perfect string lights to set the vibe. It's like giving your backyard that resort feel without the resort price tag. Delivery, it's free, it's fast, and totally hassle-free, even with the larger items. So when you're hosting friends or unwinding with a book, I read it in a book, it genuinely feels like your own private retreat. Shout out White Goodman there. Don't wait. Make your outdoor space your dream oasis today with Wayfair and enjoy it all summer long. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop a huge outdoor selection. That's Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right, Kylen. So the Warriors go with a small forward, Alex Toohey, with pick 52, 6'8". He's a defensive guy. Can his game translate defensively from day one? Because if it can, he's going to see the floor. If he's high activity, a good defender and good passer, whether he can shoot or not, he'll get some minutes, I would have to think. Although he is 21, so maybe not. But at the very least, we'll see him in the summer league, right? We're excited about that.
Not only is Toohey 21, he just turned 21 a couple weeks ago, so he's barely 21. He was 20, just a month or a little over a month ago. I just was watching some film on him as you were doing our sponsored read here for the segment. And you know who he reminds me of? And honestly, as you were kind of talking more about his game. So, tough, versatile, good on the defensive end, high basketball IQ, high motor energy player. And as I'm watching the highlights, he reminds me a lot of Guy Santos. Reminds me a ton of Guy Santos. And I like Guy. We've called him Enter Guy. I think he has potential to be a role player in the NBA, but why bring in a second Guy Santos? Like, to me, there is a lot of traits. And like I said, this is just, of course, early, looks at the tape. I just saw a nice highlight package of Toohey on Twitter and hearing some of the descriptors about him, because again, as a lower draft pick, the Warriors just traded down for this guy. So it wasn't someone we initially had on a lot of our draft boards as we were doing analysis, and it's someone who covers college basketball. It really seems like he's a pretty good comp for Guy Santos. And why add another Guy? I guess that's my question. It seems like very similar styles.
Australian Guy. How about that?
We're gonna have to come up with we'll have to come up with another Enter Guy and something. We're gonna have to come up with some other nickname for Toohey. Yeah, I don't know, man. And again, it just seems to be, this is another guy who's super, who's young, who I think is going to need some development. And a lot of the traits you described, like, that's great, having a forward with versatility. But also the Warriors do want to add someone who's an elite shooter. And I don't think he's a bad shooter, though. You were just kind of talking about some of the numbers, but I'm looking at the actual tape of his shot. Not bad, but still, it just seems very similar to Guy Santos. And that's not the profile I would have gone for. I'm actually super disappointed, because right after the Warriors, the Sacramento Kings selected Wisconsin's Jean Tange, a much more NBA ready wing who does have some defensive concerns. So I get that that's maybe not what the Warriors were looking for, but to me, a much more NBA ready player, and a guy who can hit the three ball at an extremely high clip, will also do some creating off the dribble. That's a player who also has a high basketball IQ and just a little bit more experience, who I think would have been a more ready depth piece for the Warriors than Alex Toohey would be. So I just question the bringing in of another quote unquote project.
Drew in the chat, I've been sitting on this one for a minute. He said, this guy is having trouble keeping a straight face, being all positive about this. Let's not act like anyone knows who the hell Alex Toohey is. And there may be some Australians in the chat that like go to his games and they're like, no, Toohey's nice. But let's not act like we know anything about Alex Toohey, aside from some statistics and some write-ups and a 45-second montage. Based on the way he's described, I don't necessarily think it's what the Warriors needed, right? Like, I would think Kobe Brea or Maxime Reynaud, who were there for the taking at 41. In fact, Brea went 41. I would think that those two players, and then Tyrese Proctor, who went a little later, I would think that they make a little more sense than someone like this that's kind of a grinder. But again, high IQ basketball players are what the Warriors seem to be looking for when they don't get high IQ basketball players that have tons of talent, like Jonathan Kuminga. They don't necessarily even play him, even though he puts up numbers. So, I mean, look, am I having trouble keeping a straight face, being positive about it? I have no idea what to think, quite frankly. I'm pissed they traded the pick. 41 and Maxime Reynaud.
Yep.
That was my pick. I thought they should have traded up to like 24 with the Thunder to get Reynaud. He falls all the way down to 41. And you didn't even have the pick to go with him. You had already traded it, and instead they go with Toohey from Australia. Again, offensively, completely developmental. Defensively, we don't know. And if you're going to sit in the chat and act like you know, then it's time to get into scouting. Get off YouTube, get into scouting. Head over to Australia or France or wherever and start watching tape, because you're the next big thing. But, yeah, again, I'm just pissed they traded the pick. That's all I got to say about it. I don't know a ton about Toohey. There were some options there that I liked, and they have another chance at 59 to take one of those options. So we'll see.
Supposedly he shot well in the NBA Combine, and like I said, I just was looking at some of his film, and it's not bad shooting mechanics, but a plus defender. It looks like you said, a lot of really good measurements in terms of what he did at the Combine. And I'm with you, Chuck. I'm with you. Why trade the pick? These picks better be on the move. Like, that's my overall thought, is that I just think that the Warriors don't need just they don't need a developmental wing. They don't need someone to stash. Like, I guess maybe that's what you think. Like, you send him off and stash him for a year and then wait and see what he can become next year. But it's just like, we don't need to be signing any more guys who are going to be going to Santa Cruz and playing at Santa Cruz. Like, the Warriors need depth pieces for right now. And I think they had at least a much more NBA ready guy and multiple guys who they could have picked at 41. So I'm just really, really, really curious as to what is the strategy here. And I'm really hoping that this is, I thought maybe even before the draft was made, but I'm hoping that I was hoping this was draft capital that would be on the move for a trade, like package it up with JK, and that they were working on bringing something big, bringing Bam Adebayo to the Warriors. Is that wishful thinking? Is that wishful thinking?
We can all dream, right? There are some players left that I like, Kylen.
Okay.
We mentioned a few of them, and you tell me if any of these guys were taken off the clock. I'll just do the refresh right now to make sure that I don't sound like an idiot live on air. Tanjay. Okay, so we're good.
Tanjay just went off. Yeah. Like I said, I was bummed because I think Tanjay could have been a good fit because Tanjay is a really good shooter, 3-point shooter, developed his mid-range game. Like I said, also athletic enough to get to the bucket. The concerns were defensive athleticism, but he's a high IQ player who I think could have compensated for that and is a little bit more NBA ready coming off his 5th year at the collegiate level. So I was kind of sad. He went one pick after the Warriors went.
Okay, Tamar Bates is who I'm going to guess the Golden State Warriors take. They worked him out, or RJ Lewis. I think it's going to be one of those two.
I can see that.
Or Eric Dixon. Those three are the guys that the Warriors have worked out that are still on the clock. And RJ Lewis, 6'7", wing, has the potential to be a 3-level scorer and just a complete player if he can shoot. Has not been a consistent shooter at the collegiate level, but a really good defender, high energy player. But I think you need a shooter. That's Tamar Bates. He's a lefty, good IQ, good shooter. Nothing special as an athlete, but shot 40% from three, 94% from the line. I mentioned made 220 of 238 free throws in college. Catch and shoot guy, good pull-up jumper, has a step-back 3. His weaknesses, he's skinny as hell. Get the man some Myoplex. He weighs 191. Not a very versatile offensive threat. Doesn't play above the rim. Not a good slasher. He's a shooter. Athletic wings can play him off the floor defensively. Average lateral quickness. Lack of scoring aggression in college is something that was interesting. Average just 13 a game, which you usually don't see players average like 13 in college and then come in and score 22 in the NBA. But we've seen crazier things. Doesn't mean he can't pop, but it sounds like he defers too much and needs to be more selfish. But strong character, good work ethic attached to him, a late bloomer, and some are thinking he could be an overlooked guy due to lack of production at the collegiate level. And then Eric Dixon, who averaged 23 and 5 at Villanova, big body that can stretch the floor, a little bit undersized as a power forward. It's 6'8", and struggles as a switchable defender against quicker perimeter players. Not a great passer either. So I don't know if Steve
That's
Kerr,
not great.
Yeah, I don't know if they will go with him. But hey, Warriors are about to be on the clock. Let's take another break. And when we return, it's the Golden State Warriors' 59th pick and tying a ribbon on the NBA draft. Alex Toohey goes 52 to Golden State, a 6'8" small forward from Australia. All right. I'll tell you what, everyone. When I found out Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. So intrigued that I gave it a try. I had heard about their quality from friends and family, but I've been sticking with the same underwear for so long. Let me tell you what. Yes! It's good stuff. A game changer. Fit, comfort, the right style. Skims changed everything for me. My favorite Skims, I think it's the Stretch 5 Boxer Brief. I like going to the gym, playing a little hoop. For those of you that say I can't touch the net when they try to diss me, I can grab rim, baby. I could dunk a tennis. I can't dunk a tennis ball. I'm only 5'10". But, I got some bunnies. Come on now. 32-inch vert, something along those lines. But I work out quite a bit, and when I do, the Stretch 5 Boxer Brief is perfect because it doesn't give you that synthetic feeling. You can wear it around the house. It's versatile, kind of like Alex Toohey, right? The Cotton 3 Boxer Brief is nice too. It's just something simple and classic with a little bit of a Skims twist. Shop SKIMS Mens at skims.com. Let them know we sent you after you place your order. Select podcast in the survey. Select our show, Locked On Warriors, in the drop-down menu that follows. Pick number 59 on the way. All right, so the pick is in for the Memphis Grizzlies. This is pick number 56. So we got Memphis, Orlando, Cleveland, and then the Warriors will round things off with the 59th pick in the draft. Izan Alzama, another name we haven't mentioned. He's from Spain. I don't think they will go with him, considering he's a high-energy guy that is really known for his defense and his rebounding and his motor. 6'9", 220. Has the best vertical reach at the combine and a wingspan pushing 7'2". Could be a really good defender. And if he develops an offensive package, could be a steal late in the draft. But I don't think you can go with two storage players. I think you have to find someone that can play right about now. Ryan Nembhard, the brother of Andrew Nembhard for the Pacers, averaged 10 points, 10 assists at Gonzaga. He's tiny. Second shortest player at the NBA Combine. Warriors fans are like, oh, no. We're for sure drafting Nembhard. We like the short guys, the short kings. He averaged 10 points, 10 assists, shot at 40% from three, though. So we've mentioned a bunch of these names. I'm intrigued to see what the Warriors are going to do. Will Richard from Florida just went 56 to the Memphis Grizzlies. So all these picks we've talked about are still on the table, Kylen. Warm up your hands. I'm excited. I love doing these things live.
If the Warriors draft Ryan Nembhard, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what I would possibly do besides pull my hair out about picking a 6-foot point guard who can't shoot the basketball. High IQ, a lot of assists. That's all well and good, but we don't. There is absolutely no need for that. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know.
We got in the chat from Monkey Games that the Warriors might select Chuck. I shot at about 36% in my heyday from deep. Unfortunately, one of the worst right hands you've ever seen. I'm all left, no right, to the point like I'm one of those guys that when I'm going up in transition on the right side, just to make sure I'm going up with my left hand. Like one of my buddies, I was playing at the gym with him a few weeks ago. You know, Drew Schroeder, shout out. He's a Warriors fan. Kylen. We were playing at Lifetime, and I took one strong to the rack and kind of floated one up with my right hand. And he was like, dude, I've known you for 15 years. I've never seen you make a shot or take a shot with your right hand. And I was like, yeah, that's because I got a strong left. But, yeah, the Warriors will not be drafting me. You don't have to worry about that. We will see. Todd Packer, if you squint hard enough, Chuck can be Pat Spencer. Can't handle the stick. I'll tell you that much, you know, and would not be able to get into Northwestern. But aside from that, squint. It's like the Peter Parker meme, you know? Before he puts on the glasses, you see Pat Spencer. Put on the glasses, it's me. So we are waiting. As a part of a trade, we got something, Kylen.
What? I was going to say, I want to run through like the Warriors roster as it's built now. That's like, I'm just looking at the roster. So you've got Gary Payton II. We don't know really what his future is going to hold. Jonathan Kuminga, I think is going to be on the move based on the most recent articles and reports that are out, and based on just his entire tenure with the Warrior and where they're at. I think that he'll be on the move. But they've got Brandon Pajemski, Moses Moody in the backcourt. You've got Buddy Hield returning in the backcourt. You've got Jimmy Butler out on the wing, small forward position. You've got Kevon Looney as your backup five. You've got Quentin Post contributing as a floor spacing stretch five as well. You've got Draymond Green when the Warriors go small playing at the 5 or the 4. I personally think the Warriors need a starting 5. Like that to me is a big position of need still and continually moving forward. You got Guy Santos, another wing type of player. Steph Curry obviously is the guy starting out in the backcourt, and the Warriors have loved playing Pods and Steph together, which I don't love personally defensively. I think that's a defensive liability between those two. But you know, we'll see. And then I'm trying to think who else they had. Kevin Knox Jr. was a guy in a 2-way contract this last year. I know a lot of people have brought up Pat Spencer, you know, coming in, and we saw him getting some minutes in the playoffs. All jokes aside, guard who stepped in, and honestly, the few minutes that he played in some of those playoff games, I was like, honestly, they weren't bad minutes. And then you've got Trace Jackson Davis, who not really sure what his role is going to be carved out as this past season, or I think career-wise, I can't remember. He's averaging about 7 points per game and 5 boards, so not terrible numbers. But what kind of role is he going to carve out moving forward? I just see the biggest need continuing to be at the 5. And then, so I think the Warriors need a big. I think that's one big need, and then I think adding some depth at the wing position is another need. Another question people have asked is like, is Pods going to be the backup point? Do we like Pods starting alongside Steph Curry? Like, is there someone else that needs to be, a vet signed as a backup guy to run the point if they do start Pods alongside Steph? But I don't love those two starting in the front court together. So I don't know. So I'm just looking at the roster, and I just feel like a big is still the main need that the Warriors have. Would you agree?
I'm trying to confirm this. We got some folks saying that the Warriors have traded with the Grizzlies and got Will Richards from Florida. Trying to confirm this before I make any sort of a statement on Will Richards. Reportedly,
I love live shows.
Reportedly, the Warriors just got Will Richard from Florida. We will confirm when we have it. But Will Richard, he's a guy that can score the basketball. What I know about Will Richard, we saw him in the NCAA tournament. He's a national champion, averaged 13 points, 4 rebounds, 48% from the floor. He's 6'4", 206. He is an older basketball player, a 4-year collegiate player, 35% from 3, 84% from the charity stripe. Again, played in 40 games this season, scored 18 and grabbed 8 in the national championship against Houston. I'm getting the scouting report up. Is Will Richard is reportedly the Golden State Warriors pick. They trade up to take the 56th pick overall. Will Richard, did not hear much about his name. And that means the Warriors and some of these players like RJ Lewis and Tamar Bates and whoever else they worked out leading up to the draft could be players that they bring in on a camp invite, and we'll see how they potentially pop in summer league. I'm interested to see if they go back to the well with Daquan Plowden, who looked good in the league last year in his few minutes with the Atlanta Hawks that he had. But Will Richard tallied over 1,000 points at Florida, 470 rebounds, knocks down threes, assists, steals, kind of an all-around player. So Will Richard, Kylen, what do you know about him? The scouting report basically says prototypical 3-and-D.
Yep, that's what I was just going to say.
Plays off the dribble in college, more efficient in the catch-and-shoot situation. Yep. Not a stellar athlete at the next level, but does have enough lateral quickness and instincts to be a pretty solid perimeter defender. He's a good open court athlete, has an impact on all aspects of the game. So just overall, it seems like he's someone that can do a little bit of everything. Maybe like the Sion James role that I thought the Warriors should look into with that 41 pick, where it was just someone that, can pass, can handle a little, can shoot a little, can grab some boards, doesn't have great positional size by any means, but he's an NBA champion. He's a Todd Golden guy. I don't know how much of a connection there is, the former USF coach, to the Warriors coaching staff, but you would have to imagine that Dunleavy at least gave Golden a call. And he's a 6'5" shooting guard that, look, for those of you that say Pods get off the floor, you bring in Will Richard to at least compete with Pods, Buddy Hield, Moses Moody, and some of the other shooting guards on this roster. Overall, not a draft that is making me very excited. The 2-for-1 special didn't really do it for me, but at the end of the day, I don't think when the Nuggets took Jokic at 41, anyone said that was a good pick. So we'll have to see. I'm a glass half full kind of guy, Kylen.
Yeah, so Will Richard, I think, is, like you said, really projected to be a 3-and-D prospect. I watched quite a bit of him throughout the regular season and obviously March Madness, so the Gators run to the national championship. I think a solid defender, above average defender who definitely has potential to be, again, just a solid defender. I'm not going to say elite, but a solid defender at the NBA level. A role, or the best role for Richard, I would see being a off-ball, low-usage player who can be utilized, as you mentioned, in catch-and-shoot situations. He can knock down the 3 ball at a decently high clip. I think you said, is it right around 37% is what I remember for Richard. Again, he had a couple big games in the NCAA tournament where I think you saw the potential of him to be that sharpshooter who could be a 3-and-D type of prospect. in terms of shooting guards and in terms of a 3-and-D type, like I would love to see kind of what the numbers were from the NBA Combine in terms of the wingspan. I know that no one on, a lot of fans of this organization aren't going to be super thrilled about drafting a 6'4" dude. But I mean, I liked him. I liked him with Florida. I'll say that much. I liked Will Richard with Florida. Like I said, solid defender. Definitely, not a guy who I think really was prolific not a guy who was doing a ton of attacking the basket. I mean, really, he's going to be a guy that's, like I said, off ball, catch and shoot, low usage type of player who is going to try to continue what he's been able to do in his shooting from beyond the arc. I mean, so that's pretty much it. I mean, I liked him like I said, I liked him at Florida. None of this to me, Chuck, moves the needle. None of this moves the needle for the Warriors. I think that's
you had the 52nd and the 59th pick. I mean, it's pretty hard to move the needle.
Right. And right. As expected with these kinds of picks. I mean, listen, like how often do front offices and GMs get a home run in the second round in the 50s? It happens, and you get a Draymond Green who goes in the second round, but it's not very often. And so, I think that we have to temper our expectations in terms of what these guys can possibly bring to the organization. I still am going to die on the hill. The Warriors need a big. I think they need a starting center. I just keep saying it over and over and over again. But I also wouldn't have minded to see them bring in some size. I know we talked about Vlad Golden as being a possibility, but they end up with Alex Toohey and they end up with Will Richard. So there you have it. They bring in a 6'8" forward and 6'8" forward wing type of player, and then a Will Richard who's more of a shooting guard who shot the 3 ball pretty well at the collegiate level, won a national championship, is a solid defender. And a player who we'll see what he can do at the next level. I think you don't expect in the 50s for any of these picks to move the needle. My thing is just, looking at the Warriors roster composition, like what is any of this going to do? I think the Warriors have to make a trade. They have to make a trade.
So a couple things. One, let's see who the Houston Rockets take with this 59th pick that's going to be traded to the Grizzlies instead of the Warriors, just because I'm interested. Give me a second.
Real quickly, someone said they weren't getting a starting center from the second round. Yeah, no crap. I'm saying just in general, in terms of roster need right now for the Golden State Warriors, to me is a starting center. And I think they can still use some depth maybe in the front court. But I just think that that's the biggest positional need just overall. When you take a look at this roster, you're looking top to bottom. I think that I think you look at a starting center and I think that you look at wing depth. And they have addressed the wing depth situation with one of these picks here in the second round. But I mean, I don't think you can have super high expectations in terms of what guys you're picking up in the second round. But what about Bam Adebayo? Listen, the Miami Heat have an interest, and it's been widely reported in the last 24 hours in
they want Draymond Green?
Jonathan Kuminga. So what, what would that trade look like? I know some folks have also said they'd be interested in seeing Andrew Wiggins come back to the Warriors because you talk about needing wing depth. Andrew Wiggins would add some wing depth. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I don't know the Miami Heat are giving up Bam. So I totally agree with that sentiment in some of the comments. So we'll just have to see. I think the Warriors are a big trade away, though, from taking this team up a notch. And, I think there's got to be more moves in the works.
No one's going to argue that. Let's just put it this way, though. They were 23-8 last year after the Jimmy Butler trade. Yep. Statistically speaking, record-wise speaking, eye test speaking, they were good, right? Like, are they terribly far away from competing for a championship? I don't know. We don't know how close they would have been if Steph Curry was on the team. I would have to think that if I was a betting man, that they weren't going to the Western Conference final, or they weren't coming out of the West and competing for the NBA championship. I don't think they would have got past OKC, but I do think they could have potentially beat Minnesota. And the fact that they could have been representing the Western Conference finals, could have been there with OKC means that they are not hurt.
They would have been for sure.
They're not terribly far away, and players are going to get older. Now that's a good thing and a bad thing. Curry, Butler, Draymond, not a good thing that they're getting older. Their best days at any point can be behind them. But guys like Pods and Moses Moody, and say what you want about Jonathan Kuminga, there's always a chance that they pop just a little. There's always that chance until there's not. So Quentin Post, there's a chance that he develops, maybe some mid-level exception players. Like, we'll see what they do in terms of this offseason. But in regards to some of the players that they worked out, Ryan Nimhard wasn't drafted. Vlad Golden wasn't drafted. Victor Locken wasn't drafted. Eric Dixon wasn't drafted. Tamar Bates was not drafted. And RJ Lewis weren't drafted. So you would have to think the Warriors maybe on the phone here, and Shams in the next hour or two or day or two basically says that the Warriors have brought these guys in for a potential look this offseason. Not saying that that's going to turn into anything except maybe a G League invite. But in a nutshell, the Warriors trade the 41st pick, which ended up being Kobe Brea from Kentucky, a 6'7" sharpshooter. I wouldn't have minded Kobe Brea, to be honest with you. And then Maxime Moreno, my pick of the draft, my sleeper, goes 42. The Warriors could have had a 7-1 stretch center from right down the road. And instead, they opt to go with 52 and 59, trading 41 to the Phoenix Suns. And they get Alex Toohey, good defender. And when you watch his game, he's been compared to Joe Ingles, another Australian. Easy comparison. But you watch his game, and he's not a great ball handler, but he does look pretty smooth. Like, he just kind of glides and has a decent pump and go, and doesn't seem like the best athlete in the world, but can kind of take the ball down the floor and finish around the rim. I saw a little Euro step in there. And look, we've heard high IQ connected to this guy for a minute. So until you watch him play, I don't think you can really judge them based off just, what some scouts say alone, because they're wrong all the time. I mean, they are wrong all the time. And then 56 rather, Will Richard from Florida. I think the hope is that he right away can be on the big squad. Right away, he can be in the Bay Area and just be someone that can shoot, that can knock down his free throws, that knows how to play the game, that's a national champion, and that, gives you some solid productivity, because you weren't going to get that from many guys at 52 and 59. So you got kind of a stash away, high upside defensive player, at least we hope. And then you got someone that can impact the game right now, but does have somewhat of a ceiling that is not anything crazy, right? Like Will Richard at best is going to be a solid NBA player. But I've seen a lot of people in the chat say he's a better defender than he gets credit for. I'm sure some Gators fans out there will vouch for him in these comments. And it's going to be exciting to see him in Summer League. We'll keep an eye on all the trades happening, what the Warriors are doing in terms of bringing players in for camp. Free agency has begun. The Warriors are talking with Jonathan Kuminga right now. The Miami Heat are interested in Jonathan Kuminga. There is a lot to get into this offseason, but that does it for our NBA draft coverage. Omar says, please trade everybody. Everyone take a step off the ledge. They went 23-8 in the second half of the season. They beat the 2 seed. They can pretty much return everyone if they want to, and they can make some tweaks around the margins to potentially get a little bit better. A healthy Steph Curry. Look, you got number 30, and you always have somewhat of a chance. Draft night, it's come and gone. It is what it is, Kylen. Any final words?
My final words are I'm going to hold out judgment to see what other moves the Warriors make. So we'll just say that. To me, at face value, trading the 41st pick to get 2 later picks, 52 and 59, it's like, meh, what's the point? But I'm hoping that these 2 picks are on the move, and that I'm hoping a big move is still yet to come. So like I said, I'm just kind of in a wait and see mode, because the Warriors need to make major upgrades at the end of the day. Like, yes, do I think the Warriors could have won that conference semifinal series over the Minnesota Timberwolves with Steph Curry healthy? Yes. I don't think it was a guarantee. I don't think they're making it out of the conference finals. So to me, there's still a significant piece away from being a championship contender team, but they're not far. When you look at, as you pointed out, Chuck, the record and some of the statistics after Jimmy Butler joined the Warriors, you're seeing some major improvement where over the course of a full season, this could be a team that's in the top 3 or 4 in the conference for sure, even in the NBA. But I still think they're a major piece away. So I'm really keeping my fingers and toes crossed that the Warriors get a little bit bigger and make some moves to get more athletic. Like I said, bring in a 5 and, I think make some noise to get this team closer to being a championship contender.
Yep. They draft 2 guys that are extremely cheap to potentially fill out some roster spots and
Maybe.
wiggle around the apron. And that's where the Warriors are right now. They're trying to keep the salaries down because 90% of their payroll, no sense involved in guys like Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, and Steph Curry. They're making 90% of the cap right now. So we will see what they do. This is Locked On Warriors. NBA Draft Night has come and gone. Thanks, everyone, for tuning into a live edition. We will talk to you soon. Any breaking news happens tonight, and I'm getting Kylen out of bed, and she's hopping back on the air. Peace, everyone.